one of the rumors surrounding the reason why Swamp Thing was abruptly and strangely and surprisingly canceled is that, higher ups at AT&T, the new bosses of, Warner Brothers and everything, didn't like the show or didn't like the format of the show and other DC Universe shows, and they'd like them to be more like the CW shows in style. And watching this episode of Swamp Thing, I don't know if that's true or not, but watching this most recent episode of Swamp Thing, it has, dawned on me and reinforced that this show is indeed very different from like The Flash, The Arrow, Supergirl, Black Lightning in its structure. In the fact that, most of those shows like Supergirl or Black Lightning, the protagonist, the name of the show, the person the show is named after, Black Lightning or Supergirl, whomever, is, the one leading the show, who is engaging the bad guys. It kind of comes from that person. Whereas with Swamp Thing, even though the show's named Swamp Thing, this show is more about like the whole town of Murray rather than Swamp Thing himself. Swamp Thing shows up, here and there to engage a bad guy, to save, to fight a bad guy, to save Abby or someone from something. And you do not really see Swamp Thing for the rest of the show. So the show is more about the town, and Abby's kind of the main character in the town, but it's all about these relationships between people, and it's kind of like a soap opera in a swamp, with Swamp Thing himself as a part of it, at least so far with these first 3 episodes. And while the show is good, I think the show is entertaining. They've taken this direction with this type of direction with the show. I think it's good, but perhaps, the people at AT&T, they don't like that structure. They like Swamp Thing to be more structured where, it's Swamp Thing himself is driving more of the storylines, the plots, and everything kind of centers around him rather than it being about everybody else. It's, like an ensemble. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, The Flash is more about, even though some would say The Flash, other characters take more prominence over him, it's still, he talks on the show. It's more about his relationship that comes from him and the Speed Force. Whereas so far on Swamp Thing, he's not really the main focus of the show so much. And I'm wondering if that's why, that's what they were seeing when they didn't, that made them think, I don't like this show. Now, again, that said, Swamp Thing is a good show. It's just not necessarily about the Swamp Thing, at least so far. It's about all of the weird stuff going on in this town and the scientific and supernatural forces in this town. So, that's what has made me think, because I've thought a lot about Swamp Thing's cancellation and, the reasons surrounding it. There's the whole money thing, but, there's also things saying that the money thing was a smokescreen for other reasons. So, I'm thinking, is that what? They just don't like, they're not comfortable with the show being kind of a drama about this town, and they'd like it to be more traditional, where the superhero or the monster, whatever, is, like Supergirl, where it's just running around fighting evil and it's more about their life. And Swamp Thing isn't like that, at least not so far. But speaking of Swamp Thing himself, I guess, earlier in this episode, we saw, Alec Holland, he was like having a vision where he saw that guy, he was walking barefoot in the woods, in the swamp. And I'm wondering if that's how they're going to have the actor who plays Alec Holland appear in the show. He'll like be in like, in his head or flashbacks. That's how they'll keep giving that actor Andy Bean something to do. It'll be like in visions or dreams or fantasies or like, psychic warnings or whatever. Because, that's the only time I guess we'll really see him for the duration of the show later on. Because, Swamp Thing doesn't change back into Alec Holland. It's a permanent change. But, the Swamp Thing aspect of it, the part of it, he speaks. He says stuff in the show. And I guess that's Derek Mears, the actor under, the Swamp Thing outfit. He speaks to Abby when he saves her from the creature, from that guy who looks like he was infested with the rot. The rot is like, it's like kind of like an avatar. Swamp Thing's an avatar of the green. The rot's kind of like a manifestation of like death energy or anti-life, for so to speak. And it's usually often associated with Anton Arcane, a character who's not on this show yet. And I guess never will be, because it's not going to get a season 2. But I guess they're introducing the rot without Anton Arcane. Or maybe this isn't the rot, but they just gave it, the rot was the inspiration for however they had this concept in the show, with like the bugs and stuff, crawling in bodies and reanimating them. That's similar to the rot in the comics. But I guess, that's how they'll do the Alec Holland Swamp Thing dynamic. It's like, it'll be Swamp Thing appearing here and there, but, we'll see the actor who plays Swamp Thing, Andy Bean, in flashbacks and visions. So I guess that's how they're going to do it. And I suppose that can work. Um, and as for the rest of the show, we got, more of the interrelationships. Like I said, Swamp Thing's a show about the town and the people more than it is really about Swamp Thing himself. We did get some movement in the fact that I thought that the disease that's infecting people, it was going to be like this season-long thing, but it looks like here in the third episode, Abby's figured out a way, with help from Swamp Thing. He gave her some clues on how to suppress it. She was like, it's fighting back. It's not fighting. And she basically cured her friend. So I guess the whole disease infecting the town plot line, that's about over. And they can move forward. There's some forward momentum in the plotting. So they can do other things. There's a lot of stuff being set up. There's all this supernatural stuff. We see, Madame Xanadu threw out the cards and told Blue Devil, there's more for him to do. So I guess we'll see him transform into the Blue Devil character soon. We still don't understand why he's stuck in Murray and what's going on with him. But, the Blue Devil is a supernatural character in the comics. So I'm pretty sure supernatural energies or a curse or whatever will play a factor on the show. And in the comics, he was cursed. That's how he became the Blue Devil. So we'll see how the show, manifests that. And it'll be interesting to see, Blue Devil jumping out. Him and Swamp Thing will be teaming up on the show, I'm sure, to engage bad guys. And I guess the bad guys from the show are going to come from the supernatural forces like we've seen that reanimated that guy, and also scientific forces. I'm pretty sure Jason Woodrue, before the end of this season, will turn into the Floronic Man or become his own version of Plant Beast, and he will be kind of the main adversary. Or at least the main monstrous adversary. The other main adversary is probably going to be Avery Sunderland. He's been a bad guy from the beginning, but at the end of this episode, we saw him murder that dude to cover up things, as we would expect from a character like Avery Sunderland. And we're also seeing perhaps the disintegration of his marriage, as his wife Maria, with help from the ghost of her dead daughter, is kind of giving her clues that her husband, isn't on the up and up. I mean, I'm sure Maria already knows what kind of man Avery is to a degree, because she's been married to him for a long time. I mean, she knows what kind of stuff he's involved in. But, she apparently might not know about his cheating, or maybe she was like, trying to deny it to herself. And I was surprised, Avery was hooking up with, or, wanting to hook up with the sheriff. I guess the sheriff's not really that much of a goody two-shoes herself. That was an interesting, dynamic or relationship that I didn't see coming. And speaking of relationships, Jason Woodrue, his wife, whom I think they created just for the show, although I'm not that familiar with that. Maybe I missed that from the character in the comics. I haven't read those old comics that he appeared in. Did Jason Woodrue have a wife in the old days? But I think if he didn't, I think they made her up for the show. They're making her crazy and stuff. And I'm wondering how that's going to play out. Like, is something going to happen to his wife to drive him over the edge and push him over to becoming completely, truly evil? Because right now he's kind of shady, but, he hasn't gone into full supervillain territory yet. But something's got to push him over the edge. And so maybe something will happen to his wife accidentally caused by Swamp Thing or Abby. And, Jason Woodrue will be determined, he'll be angry out for revenge and want to destroy Abby or Swamp Thing. And maybe that will push him to become even more of a psycho and, play into him evolving into the Floronic Man. We'll see, because I don't see any reason for them to give Jason Woodrue a wife on the show when he doesn't have one in the comics. At least not as far as I know. Unless, there's going to be some kind of storyline plot reason, to help drive him more towards becoming evil. Or maybe he's, she says in the show, did I remember to take my pills? Maybe he's actually making her think she's crazy by hiding her pills from her for some reason. I don't know, maybe he's contributing to her decline. I mean, we'll find out soon. I'm pretty sure we'll know what's up with her and that relationship and them before the end of this season. Probably pretty soon, since it's only 10 episodes. But, there we have it, episode 3 of Swamp Thing. Very good episode, but, a different type of show than one maybe the AT&T executives were hoping or expecting. It's definitely not like Arrow or Flash, and I'm not saying it's better or worse than those. It's just a different flavor of show. And perhaps that's part of the reason why, some execs were like, we're not feeling this. Because, they wanted a certain expectation and they got something different. But, maybe they can be convinced, this hashtag Save Swamp Thing, that they can revive this show or keep it around. Because it's not a bad show. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please like it on YouTube and subscribe to the channel because I appreciate your viewership, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.